Hello, and my name is John Stephen, and today I'll be your French language tutor in the name of Zoom in French. You'll see the details there on the screen. All right, now today what we're going to do is to look at some basics in French grammar. We're going to go through how does one conjugate the main verb types in French. And what do I mean by conjugate? Well, it's when we take a verb in its infinitive, as in its raw state, such as to go, to see, to eat, and then you conjugate it so that you can make sentences with it, such as I eat, you eat, he, she eats. And as you can hear there in the third person singular, the he and the she, the eat changes to eats. And that's what we do in English. Now, in French, you have the same idea. And each person, in reference in the conjugation, such as the we, you, they, each of those subjects will have a slightly different conjugation. So that's what we're going to go through today, which is absolutely fundamental to any aspect of learning French. And we're going to go through the present tense, otherwise known en français as le temps au présent. And I put here the top 20 or so verbs because these are the ones that are absolutely fundamental to pretty well any conversation you may have. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to go through the fundamentals. So there are three verb groups in French. The first one is called the ER group, the ones where verbs end in the letters ER. And I've given you three examples there. Manger, meaning to eat. Donner, meaning to give. Marcher, meaning to walk. Each of those, as you will see, ends in the letters ER. And to conjugate those verbs, we remove the ER, and then we are left with what we call the root. And let me show you here an example of a verb where we can see the root. So here is the verb marcher, meaning to walk. And if I remove the ER, we are left with the root of MARCH. You'll see that marche flows right through all the different persons of the conjugation. So you'll see how that goes in a second when we add the correct endings depending upon the person. So we go in order: E, ES, E, ONS, EZ, ENT. And so how does that sound? So if we start off with je, meaning I, je marche, tu marches, meaning you walk, il, elle, on marche, nous marchons, vous marchez, il, elle marche. Now, of course, we have to know what they actually mean. So je means I, tu means you, meaning you singular or you in the very informal sense. Il meaning he, elle means she, on means we or one does something. Often in French, we'll use on instead of we, because it means the same thing in French. Then nous, which means we, vous, meaning you, either you plural or you in a more formal sense, somebody you may not know, for example, very well. And then il, meaning they, masculine plural, and elle, feminine plural. So elle marche means they walk. Let's say a group of ladies. Okay, so those are ER verbs, and the vast majority of all verbs that end in ER will be conjugated just like that. So once you understand how to do one, you know how to do the vast, vast majority. Let's look at the second group. The second group are verbs that end with IR. And the three examples I've chosen are finir, meaning to finish, choisir, meaning to choose, and réfléchir, meaning to think about something, to reflect upon something. And just in the same way as we did with the ER verbs, we remove the IR in this case, and we will get to the root again. And to that root, we add the endings of IS, IS, IT, ISSONS, ISSEZ, ISSENT. So let's have a look at this example verb, finir. And we go, je finis, tu finis, il finit, and obviously elle and on finit. Nous finissons, vous finissez, ils finissent, elles finissent. Now you'll hear me exaggerating slightly the double S, finissent. And the reason is because it is in great contrast with a single S in French, which sounds more like a Z. Okay, but when there are double S's like this, it is definitely a S sound. Okay, so that is the verb finir, but again, it could be choisir, and I could ask you now just to think about how you would conjugate the verb choisir, to choose. So yes, you're right. You would do exactly the same thing. Je choisis, tu choisis, il, elle, on choisit, nous choisissons, vous choisissez, il, elle choisissent. Of course, there's a slight tongue twister there because you've got choisir with the single S, which is a Z sound, followed by, in the first, second, and third persons plural, the S sound. So it's choisissons, nous choisissons, for example. Okay, that's the second group. And the third group, well, the third group just means the verbs that are irregular and they don't really fit into either of the first two groups, which is, I suppose, a bit of a catch-all, really. It means that they don't conjugate in the same regular pattern. So it means that the verbs that fall into this group, they conjugate in a different way, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And frankly, you've just got to know how to conjugate these. There are no particular rules. And of course, we will look at a few. So let's have a look at the some of the verbs that are included here. You've got verbs that end in IR, such as sortir and dormir. And obviously, because they're in the third group, you already know, they do not conjugate like the IR verbs that we've just had a look at, such as finir, choisir, réfléchir, etc. So these ones do not conjugate in that way. Then you've got verbs ending in OIR. So these verbs, as an example, would be savoir, vouloir, and pouvoir. And you can see what they mean there. I put those in brackets for you. And again, very, very common verbs there. I mean, to know, to want something, to be able to do something, like I can, same thing. You use the verb pouvoir, but it does not conjugate in a normal, regular fashion. Then you've got verbs ending in re, such as prendre, meaning to take, attendre, meaning to wait, mettre, and croire, meaning to believe. Now, again, all these four, they conjugate in their own special way. Finally, you've got the very, very important verbs of être, meaning to be, avoir, meaning to have, and aller, meaning to go. And these three, I mean, probably they have to be up there in your top 10 verbs to know off by heart, because every time you open your mouth, you're going to be using être, avoir, or aller pretty well. Okay, so let's have a look at the verb mettre. Mettre means to put something or to put something on, like some clothes, for example. And let's have a look at how this one conjugates. So you've got je mets, tu mets, il, elle met, nous mettons, vous mettez, il, elle mettent. Now you'll notice there that from the nous, vous, and il and elle persons, we go from a single T to a double T. And that double T has a big significance. It changes it from a silent T, as in je mets, tu mets, il met, to a very, very hard T. Nous mettons, vous mettez, ils mettent. And you can hear my voice. The pronunciation is quite solid there. Then we go to the verb passer. Passer means to pass by or even to pop in to see somebody. And it also means, funnily enough, to take an exam, for example. So passer un examen does not mean to pass an exam, as you might think. Like in English, if we say pass an exam, it means you've succeeded. Well done. No, in French, it just means to actually take it. Passer un examen. And again, because it is an ER verb, immediately, unless it falls part of the third group, which it doesn't, this one will conjugate in the normal way. So, je passe, tu passes, il passe, nous passons, vous passez, il passe. So very straightforward, really. Aimer, meaning to love or to like something or someone, is again a straight ER verb, which conjugates in the normal way. Parler, to talk or to speak. It's an ER verb and it conjugates in the normal way. So you already know what that is, don't you? Yes, you have the endings of E, ES, E, ONS, EZ, ENT. And therefore, je parle, tu parles, il parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle. Very, very straightforward. But just to the right here, you can see I've got the verb dire. Dire is to say. Now this one, this definitely falls into the third group, because it does not at all follow the normal conjugation of an RE verb. Oh no. The following, it goes like this. Je dis, tu dis, il, elle dit. Then listen what happens here. Nous disons, don't forget one S, therefore it's a Z sound. Nous disons, vous dites, ils, elles disent. Wow. Now that one is a very important verb to learn because it's used a lot. You have dire. Qu'est-ce que vous dites? What are you saying? Or what did you say? Qu'est-ce que vous dites? So vous dites. Or, so let's just go through again. Je dis, tu dis, il dit, nous disons, vous dites, ils disent. Okay, that's dire. Now, the verb prendre, this is a huge verb in French. Why is it huge? Well, because it's used an awful lot to take something, but it's also used in the way that the English speakers tend to use it as well. So, for example, you might walk into a baker's, a boulangerie, and you say, bon, alors, je prends un croissant. Je prends. So let me show you the conjugation. Here we go. Je prends. So we'll use it in the same way to take, as in, this is what I'll have. But notice here, the conjugation, it changes. It's very different. So let me go through it with you, because there's something quite surprising about this verb prendre. So it starts off, je prends, tu prends, il prend, then nous prenons, vous prenez, ils prennent. Did you notice that? There were three different distinct sounds for this letter E. And let me do it again for you. See if you can pick it up. Je prends, tu prends, il prend, nous prenons, vous prenez, ils prennent. Well, yes, exactly. You've got en, e, e. Yes, and of course, I do not recommend that you practice this in the shower or the bath. Otherwise, people will think you've gone slightly mad. No, but this is something for you to practice by yourself, because it's a very, very, very common verb where the pronunciation is vital. Okay. Donner, the next one on my list. Well, of course, it just means to give, to hand something over. And it's an ER verb, and it doesn't have any tricky bits at all. I haven't underlined it like I did with mettre and prendre and dire. Those ones I underlined because they were of the third group. However, donner, first group, and it follows the same rules as any ER verb in the first group. So, je donne, tu donnes, il donne, nous donnons, vous donnez, il donne. So, and again, the double N, those two N's mean that the N's really are pronounced. It's a very key thing in French in general. The French language, you pronounce or you put emphasis on the ends of the word, as opposed to in English, where we tend to emphasize the beginning of the word. So here's the verb trouver. Trouver means to find something. And again, trouver is an ER verb. It conjugates in the normal way, so there are just no surprises whatsoever there. And so therefore, can you guess how that conjugates? Yeah, you're right. Just like donner. Je trouve, tu trouves, il trouve, nous trouvons, vous trouvez, il trouve. Very straightforward. Let's look at the verb penser. Okay, penser. Now, penser is very straightforward. It means to think that, or to think in general. And I put here CF, which means compare it to the verb croire, which means to believe something or to believe in something. The two are fairly similar in French. When you say, oh, yes, I think so, you could use either penser, regular EI verb, and I put it for you there, by the way, so you can see it doesn't have any strange elements. And the verb croire. Now that one, by contrast, this is an RE verb, but have a look how it conjugates it. It goes je crois, tu crois, il croit, nous croyons, vous croyez, il croit. So again, pronunciation, we have to practice a little bit that, but you can see this OI is a wa sound. Je crois, tu crois, il croit, and then nous croyons changes into a Y. Nous croyons, vous croyez, il croit. Okay, so again, so somebody asks you, what do you think of this? You might say, ah oui, je crois que c'est bon. I think that it's good. Oui, je crois que c'est bon. Or you could say, oui, je pense que c'est bon. I think that it is good. Again, both the two can be used interchangeably. But if one was talking about more of a belief in something, such as a religious belief, yes, you would use the verb croire, not penser. Let's look at the verb devoir, a very, very important verb. So this means to have to do something. And you'll notice there I put it in brackets, to personally have to do something. So it's not a general, one has to do this, one should do that. It's it's more of a personal thing. So you can see the conjugation of je dois, tu dois, il doit. So again, it's that what, but then suddenly we now move into nous devons, vous devez, and then ils doivent. And as you can see, so the verb in its infinitive form of devoir suddenly moves into the conjugation of je dois, tu dois, il doit, and then nous devons, vous devez, and then back again to the wa sound, ils, elles doivent. Again, these are verbs that you just have to know because they are used all the time. You'll notice here I have just put CF. Would you do just look at the verb falloir? Falloir is only used in the third person singular, okay? And here it is. And all it means is it means it is necessary to do something. It is necessary to do something. So for example, il faut manger. One has to eat. Il faut aller au supermarché. One must go to the supermarket. Il faut, followed by the infinitive of a verb. It means to have to do something. And it is always, I repeat, used in the il form. There's no, it's a little bit like raining in English. You cannot say, she is raining, we are raining. No, it is raining. And that's it. You've only have one form, just like in French here. Il faut. And as I say, compare that with devoir, which is more of a personal obligation to do something, whereas il faut is mostly to do with a general obligation that one has to do. Let's look at the verb venir. Venir. The verb venir means to come, okay? And it's, again, super important that you know how to conjugate this. And again, it does not conjugate like a regular IR verb. Oh, no. It has its own way. So let's go through it. Je viens, tu viens, il vient, nous venons, vous venez, ils viennent. Notice again that big change where I hope you spotted. We go for viens, tu viens, il vient. You got this nia sound, followed by the nous form and the vous form, where the E is definitely be an E. nous venons, vous venez, and then you've come back to the VI double N. Notice the double N. That is significant because it means the change goes into viennent. Just try that. Ils viennent. Ils viennent. Okay, so this is the verb to come. So if you hear somebody, let's say a lady, for example, or a parent in the supermarket talking to their child, you say, viens ici, come here, viens ici. So, viens, come, come. The verb vouloir is the verb to want something, to want. So again, very, very common, but please notice the conjugation is so different. It goes, je veux, tu veux, il veut, then nous voulons, vous voulez, ils veulent, ils veulent. So you can see that you start off with je veux with an X, tu veux with an X, then il, elle veut with a T. Same pronunciation though, absolutely, but the spelling is just slightly different. Then nous voulons, vous voulez, then ils, elles veulent, veulent. So again, it's different, but it's extremely important, this verb, because you can walk into a shop who is, alors, vous voulez quoi, monsieur? Vous voulez quoi? What do you want? Again, there are more polite ways in which to express that, but vous voulez quoi, meaning what? Vous voulez quoi? What do you want? So again, you could then say, ah, je veux deux baguettes, s'il vous plaît. Je veux deux baguettes, s'il vous plaît. I would like two baguettes of bread, please. Okay. The verb savoir, to know. Now, I'm going to say straight out, this is tricky for English speakers. Why? Because we have one verb and it's to know. However, in French, they have two different verbs. One is savoir, to know, and the other is connaître. But if you think of connaître more to be familiar with, as in I'm familiar with X something or someone, then you will hopefully be able to make the distinction more easily. Savoir is to know something or to know a fact, to know about something, but this does not suggest familiarization. Okay, in other words, to have personal experience of. So let's go through savoir, which again, it ends in OIR, but it conjugates in its own way. Here we go. Je sais, tu sais, il sait, nous savons, vous savez, ils savent, ils savent. Not tricky, but again, and again, you'll see similarities here between IR verbs and ER verbs. What do you mean, John? Well, you'll see IR verbs, IS, IT, like finir, and then we'll go ONS, EZ, ENT. Oh, that's like an ER verb, a regular ER verb, and it's just combined the two. Complicated? Perhaps, but yes, another one that one really has to know. So I mentioned connaître. Here's a really, it's a vital verb to know, because of course we often talk about, do you know somebody? And of course, connaître is all about knowing somebody. So, je connais, tu connais, il connaît, nous connaissons, vous connaissez, ils connaissent. Now, fairly straightforward, but just notice a few things. So this familiarity, as I say, to be familiar with someone, but it can also be things or places. So I could say, for example, je connais Londres. Je connais Londres. I know or I'm familiar with London. You would never say je sais Londres. No, that would be horrible and that would not be right. So, je connais, tu connais, il, elle connaît. And for those of you who are being a little bit sharp, you'll have noticed, hang on, I've got a circumflex accent on one, but not on the other of the AIT. Why? Because actually in French, it is optional. It is optional as to whether or not that circumflex accent's there. It always used to be, but in common French language today, it's sometimes missed and it is accepted now as not necessary. It certainly doesn't change the pronunciation at all. So, il, elle connaît, then nous connaissons, don't forget the double S is a big S. Nous connaissons, vous connaissez, il, elle connaissent. Again, that big S, connaissent, so they know. So let's look at voir, voir, to see. So, je vois, tu vois, il voit, nous voyons, vous voyez, il voit. And you say, "Ooh, that's fairly similar to croire that I saw that you did earlier, John." Well, yes, it's that wa sound, isn't it? Je vois, tu vois, il voit, nous voyons, vous voyez, il voit. And again, to see or to get the point, you could say, ah oui, je vois, oui, 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 je vois, yes, 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 I see. Just in the same way as English. Okay, and then the famous verb aller, to go. Now, this one is a key one. Je vais, tu vas, il va, nous allons, vous allez, ils, elles vont. Whoa, you say, John, that is horrific because it goes all over the place. Yes, it does, even though the infinitive is aller, it starts off with je vais, then goes tu vas, il, elle va, then nous allons, vous allez, then ils, elles vont. So is there any logic there? I haven't a clue and I would suggest not, but honestly, it's just the way it is. And aller is a verb that's used hugely because it doesn't only mean to go somewhere. For example, je vais en ville. I'm going into town. Je vais en ville. But it is also used in the way we do in English, like I'm going to do something. I'm going to eat. Je vais manger. I'm going to buy something. Je vais acheter quelque chose. Je vais acheter une baguette. I'm going to buy a baguette. So the verb aller is used all day, every day by the French. Everyday French, this is 100% necessary. But of course, you've got to know how to conjugate je through to il perfectly. Let's look at the verb pouvoir. Now, we did look at vouloir, didn't we? And this is pouvoir, to be able. So, je peux, tu peux, il peut, nous pouvons, vous pouvez, ils, elles peuvent, peuvent. So again, you'll see similarities with what we did with vouloir. You've got the X, the T, je peux, tu peux, il peut. Again, the X, and the T are not pronounced at all. It's as though they're non-existent. Then, nous pouvons, vous pouvez, then ils peuvent, peuvent. And notice again, I emphasize the ends of the words are so crucial in French. Nous, ils peuvent. Notice I'm emphasizing the ends. Nous pouvons. Okay. So, je peux aller au marché. I can go to the market. Je peux aller au marché. So that's combining now. Je peux plus aller, which is right there. We've just learnt that. Je peux aller au marché. I can go to the market. The verb dire, yes, we did this a little earlier, but I'm just repeating it because it is very important. Je dis, tu dis, il dit, nous disons, vous dites. Ils disent. Comprendre, the verb comprendre. Of course, this is one that we've all learned right at the beginning of our French studies. Ah, je ne comprends pas. Do you remember saying that? Maybe you still do. Hopefully, you won't have to be saying that for too much longer if you come and study lessons, study French with me in Zooming French. So let's conjugate this one. Je comprends, tu comprends, il comprend, nous comprenons, vous comprenez, ils comprennent. There are slight smacks of other verbs that we've done, like, for example, prendre. Oui, je comprends, tu comprends, il comprend, nous comprenons, vous comprenez, ils comprennent. So again, there are similarities there. But of course, one has to learn this. You'll notice again the double N here, emphasizing the N sound. Ils comprennent. The verb faire. Oh my goodness, this is a huge verb. So, je fais, tu fais, il fait, nous faisons, vous faites, ils font. Whoa, what's all that about, you say? Well, this verb faire means to do or to make. And it changes, the pronunciation changes also as well. So, je fais, tu fais, il fait, no trouble with that at all. You can see it's just is, it, again, like an IR verb, like finir. So, je fais, tu fais, il fait. Then this fait sound changes to an sound in this first person plural. So the wrong thing to say would be nous faisons. No, no, no. Because faisons, it's wrong, okay? So it's nous faisons. Nous faisons. It's an Imagine there was an E there as opposed to AI. If there were an E there, it would be simple because the E is pronounced E. So nous faisons, then vous faites, then ils, elles font. So, je fais, tu fais, il fait, nous faisons, vous faites, ils font. The verb avoir. Ooh. Now, the verb to have, I've just put there, it's in brackets an auxiliary verb. Forget about that at the moment. When you study additional tenses, such as the past tense called the passé composé, for example, that's when the term auxiliary will mean something to you. But for the moment, just forget it. And the verb avoir just means to have, to have. So, j'ai, tu as, il, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont. Notice, please, that avoir starts with an A, a vowel, and the je, je, that changes into a J apostrophe. so that it just becomes j'ai, j'ai. So j'ai, tu as, il a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, ils ont. Okay. And finally, for this first part of our lesson, because I'll do it in two parts, we've got the verb être. And notice again, it's also another auxiliary verb. Forget about that for the time being, but the verb être, which has a circumflex over the E, by the way, that is compulsory, not like connaître. So être, meaning to be, to be. So it conjugates. Je suis, tu es, il est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont. Of course, it goes all over the place. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason for the verb être. They are just, it's just the way it has been formulated over the millennia of the French language. So, je suis John. Je suis John. I am John. Tu es, you are. Tu es Martine. You are Martine. Il est, nous sommes. Vous êtes. Ils sont. So that's what you have to learn again by heart. So thank you very much indeed for listening to this. If you do like it, please give a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. And obviously you are at liberty to contact me on zoominfrench@gmail.com. Should you wish to join one of our many language classes, which are quite small, maximum of 6 people. We hold these once a week, or indeed one-to-one lessons, again, all using Zoom, this medium, but obviously one-to-ones, I'll deal with you personally and therefore private attention. Anyway, until the next video, thank you very much, and bonne chance, or even bon courage avec la langue française. Merci. Au revoir.